The Valzartan Galactic Empire had a reputation as a predatory force that left behind only ashes and submission. Their cruisers, huge as metal continents, conquered 17 civilizations. None survived more than a few cycles of resistance, and now their greedy eyes are staring at Earth. "They're not even worthy of a full fleet," Supreme Commander Vincent Thorne said sarcastically, standing in front of a hologram of the human system. "Nuclear warheads, nuclear. It's like trying to stop a hailstorm with ribbon." General Karzan, the commander of the Expeditionary Corps, grimaced. A pitiful sight indeed. Their ships looked like toys. They laughed then. They thought the Earth would fall in 2 standard revolutions. They were convinced that people were too disunited, too weak. The first blow came to the colonies on Mars. Burning cities, cut off distress calls, torn hermetic domes that looked like broken glass balls. The Valzartans showed all their cruelty, leaving no chance for negotiations. Mars fell in 18 hours. The Earth stood still. Panic gripped the streets. Governments echoed in the chaos, blaming each other. But at that moment, Admiral Rebecca Grayson took the stage. "We are preparing a response," she said at an emergency meeting of the United Earth Council. Her voice was calm, cold, like a knife blade. "And they won't see it until it's too late." "Forget it," one of the diplomats shouted. "Their cruisers are the size of Manhattan. They could wipe out Mars in a matter of hours. We can't survive a direct hit." "We can," Grayson replied, "because we're not going to play by their rules." Aboard the flagship, the Pride of the Empire, General Karzan reviewed intelligence reports. Humanity had not attempted to create a defensive perimeter. There was no mass deployment of the fleet, no large-scale evacuation. "They are either stupid or very confident," he whispered. "Confident in what? Of their toy ships?" Supreme Commander Thorne scoffed. "I'll bet my life they're just desperately clinging to hope. Tomorrow we will attack their outer perimeter on Pluto. After that, they will fall to their knees." Pluto was empty and icy, a frozen wasteland at the edge of the solar system. General Karzan expected an easy march, just deploy troops and secure positions, but they were trapped. When the first landing capsules broke through Pluto's atmosphere, the snow beneath them suddenly exploded. Minefields hidden under a layer of ice exploded with fierce force. Snow and debris filled the air. The enemy troops panicked, trying to regroup, and then automatic turrets opened from under the camouflaged rocks. Laser beams slid through the white blizzard, cutting through the Empire's mechanized platforms. The ice beneath the invaders' feet split, spewing plasma charges from beneath the surface. General Karzan, watching from the command center, could not believe his eyes. "This is no accident," he whispered. "They knew." "Impossible," one of the officers exclaimed in confusion. And then the first human message came on the air, a woman's voice, cold and confident. "Welcome to our solar system. I hope you have enjoyed our hospitality. And now..." All the enemy screens suddenly flickered to life, displaying a huge inscription, "Welcome to Hell." General Karzan dropped his communicator. The people not only knew they were going to be attacked, they were expecting it, and they had prepared. Admiral Rebecca Grayson stood on the bridge of the Invicta, watching the enemy landing party being routed. Her officers cheered as the Valzartan casualty reports were shouted out. "Do you see their reaction?" Grayson turned to her comms officer. "Put them on an open frequency." The screams of panicked Empire officers broke through the airwaves. The Valzartans, the galactic conquerors who had been battering civilizations for millennia, for the first time in all that time, did not know what to do. Rebecca smiled, her eyes sparkling with cold fire. "Okay, kids," she said to her officers. "We're just getting started." "Pluto? Really? They're really going to land on Pluto?" Captain Alex Carter couldn't help but laugh as he read the latest reports. "Phew, what's next? We're going to fight them for Neptune," added Lieutenant Marcus Riley, holding a mug of coffee that splashed menacingly as he laughed. Admiral Rebecca Grayson stood in front of a huge tactical map with red dots on it, the Valzartan landing sites on Pluto. "Let them laugh, boys," she said, finally turning to the team. "But now it's time to show them what happens when you play on our turf." "And what's the plan?" Carter asked, wiping away tears of laughter. Grayson pointed to the map. "They think we're going to meet them head on. We're going to trap them. Under these snowy plains, we've placed minefields and automatic turrets. Once they get past the first line of defense," Marcus finished with a predatory grin, "there will be fireworks," Grayson confirmed. General Karzan stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the landing through a holographic image. His troops advanced across the frozen surface of Pluto, each step accompanied by the crackling of ice. "This won't even be a battle," Karzan said. "This will be a warm-up." The screen showed Valzartan troops marching, massive armored mechs armed with plasma cannons and infantry in heavy battle suits. "This Pluto is a fitting name for a grave," one of the officers chuckled. General Karzan just smiled confidently. "Go, wipe them off the face of this frozen rock." "They're already in position," said the communications officer aboard the Invicta. Grayson clenched his fist. "All right, let's do this." She tapped the communicator. "Operation Ice Squall, go ahead." The first blast tore through Pluto's surface, sending tons of ice and rocks flying. The Valzartan mechs staggered, and some fell to the side, losing their stability. A moment later, the entire battlefield erupted in new flashes as mines detonated, exploding under the invaders' feet. "What the?" Karzan shouted, watching his troops scatter haphazardly. And then the turrets hit. Mechanized platforms emerged from the snowdrifts and rocks, unleashing a barrage of laser fire. The beams slammed into the mechs, burning through their armor as if it were made of paper. "It's a trap!" roared Karazhan. "Regroup! Flank them!" But it was too late. The enemy mechs were bogged down in snowy holes, and their infantry, disoriented and frozen, were running around like confused insects. "Wow, they're not even trying to fight properly." Marcus shook his head as he watched the chaos through the holographic map. "Maybe they should have checked the weather forecast first," Carter suggested, picking up his coffee cup. "Careful," Grayson warned. "It's not time to celebrate yet. They could still do something unexpected." Carter glanced at the screen, where the Valzartan mechs were panicking and shooting their own soldiers in an attempt to get at the enemy. "If that's their plan B, I'm not worried." General Karzan looked at the chaos with a face full of rage. His officers scrambled around trying to re-establish contact with the lost units. "How could they have prepared all this?" "They knew we were coming," muttered an officer nearby. "This was no improvisation. It was a carefully planned trap." At that moment, Admiral Rebecca Grayson's cold voice came back on the open frequency. "Greetings, General Karazhan. Welcome to our little corner of the galaxy. You are only delaying the inevitable, human. We'll be back." "Oh, I'm counting on it," Grayson replied. "Next time we'll teach you why you shouldn't go to a planet where even the weather wants to kill you." The connection was cut off. General Karzan stared silently at the screen, where the wreckage of his once invincible forces burned. They just wiped out an entire battalion with traps and trickery. His officer swallowed the lump in his throat. Karzan slowly raised his head. "And now we go back, and next time there will be no traps, no tricks. We will strike at the heart of their planet." On the bridge of the Invicta, Admiral Grayson raised her mug of coffee. "Get ready, boys," she said with a wicked smile. "And this time, they'll bring everything they've got." She sipped her coffee and added, "I'm getting bored. Madam Admiral, the report from the asteroid belt is in. You're going to want to see this." Lieutenant Marcus Riley smiled as he placed the tablet on the table in front of Rebecca Grayson. "Is it good news or bad news?" she asked, not taking her eyes off the galactic map. "Well, that depends on your sense of humor." "Well, it must be fun then," Grayson muttered as she picked up the tablet. Scanner data appeared on the screen. A huge Valzartan fleet was moving toward the asteroid belt, following the fake beacons the humans had left on visible frequencies on purpose. "They actually think these are our military depots?" Grayson wondered. "It looks like it," Marcus confirmed. "Just imagine their reaction when they find, well, rocks instead of human bases." "Rocks that explode," Captain Alex Carter corrected her, joining the conversation. "As soon as their ships enter the zone, boom," Grayson smiled. "Good, let's add some drama." The Valzartan flagship, the pride of the Empire, moved ahead of the fleet that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. General Karzan stood on the bridge, watching with satisfaction as they approached the asteroid belt. "Look at that," he said. "The beacons are pinging on our frequencies. The Earthlings didn't even try to hide them. How stupid." The intelligence officer nodded. "Their stupidity is our advantage, sir." "Well said. Prepare the assault teams. Let's destroy those bases before they have time to prepare." In the center of the asteroid belt, beneath a thick layer of cosmic dust, a small Owl-class ship, a modest reconnaissance craft of the Earth's Navy, hovered in a stationary position. Inside, 3 cameramen sat in a darkened room, watching the Valzartan fleet approach. "Have they figured it out yet?" asked Sergeant Dave Collins, twirling a chewed pencil in his hands. No, replied his partner, Jessica Rain. And they've already entered the minefield perimeter. All right, let's get this show on the road. Dave pressed the activation button. Explosions tore through the silence of space. Entire fields of asteroids split apart, throwing debris in all directions. Mine charges exploded, creating a chaotic stream of debris and plasma flashes. What the hell is that? Roared Karazhan, grabbing for the command console. His bridge shook as debris struck the hull. They've broken all the stones around, yelled one of the officers. Damn it! Regroup! Karazhan managed to shout as another explosion hit one of his frigates, turning it into debris that slammed into the other ships. We're losing sensors. The dust is jamming the scanners. Karazhan clenched his fists, trying to maintain control. Retreat beyond the belt, while we... His words were cut off by a sharp signal. General, a familiar female voice said on the open frequency, I hope you enjoyed our enchanting welcome. Kazan felt the blood rush to his face. Grayson, he cried out, you sneaky... No offense, General. Grayson's voice was full of sarcasm. We just wanted to do a little space clearing. Thank you for your help. Before Karazhan could respond, the connection was cut off. On board the Invicta, Admiral Grayson sipped coffee from her favorite mug, which read, I'm not yelling. This is my command face. Do you think they'll come back? Asked Marcus. No doubt, replied Grayson. And this time they'll be angrier, stupider, and even more dangerous. Well, if they come to Pluto again, I'll personally write them a manual entitled How to Survive on a Planet Where the Temperature Turns You into an Icicle. Oh, they'll come, Rebecca smiled as she looked at the tactical map, but next time they'll learn a lesson they'll remember for a long time. Phobos? Are you serious? Captain Alex Carter put the tablet down on the table, sighing deeply. They're climbing on a rock ball again that's barely holding together? What's next? They're going to try to take over the moon? Added Lieutenant Marcus Riley, hiding a smile. Admiral Rebecca Grayson, who was standing by the panoramic screen, shook her head. They think Phobos is going to be their forward base for an attack on Earth. Phobos? Marcus giggled. It's not a moon. It's just a big rock with gravity so weak you can bounce around on it like a trampoline. Exactly, Grayson smiled. That's why we're going to make it the worst place they've ever landed. The Valzartan fleet moved like a metallic shark school into position over Phobos. Supreme Commander Vincent Thorne stood in the center of the command room, watching the landing pods approach the satellite's surface. One strike and this rock will be our outpost, Thorne growled. No traps, just a massive strike. A perfect plan, sir, the officer chimed in. Thorne grinned predatorily. Order the fleet to land. All units, move forward. Phobos was dark and silent. Its surface was covered with thin ice, and the sluggish gravity created a bizarre feeling of weightlessness. The Valzartan landing capsules slammed against the surface, kicking up dust. The invaders deployed their armored platforms, moving toward the target. They didn't prepare anything this time, one of the Valzartan commanders huffed, and then Phobos came to life. Activate pulse, Rebecca Grayson's headphones said. In an instant, all the electronic devices on the satellite's surface went out. Navigation systems, communication channels, even electronic scopes were swallowed up in darkness. What the hell? Thorne leaned forward, trying to make sense of the chaos on the screens. What's happening to our sensors? Electromagnetic pulse, sir. We're losing control of our ships, Thorne cursed. Switch to backup systems. Oh, look, they're running around like ants without antennae, Carter muttered, as he watched the chaos on Phobos' surface through the tactical screen. Don't laugh too soon, Grayson cautioned. They could still try to regroup. Try, yes, but it's not likely to work, Marcus put in, pointing to the map. All right, Grayson held up her communicator. Ghost Team, you're up. On the surface of Phobos, a group of 5 small Shadow-class ships glided past the wreckage of the enemy platforms. The crews of these maneuverable vessels were veterans, trained to operate in the dark. Target 1 down, Grayson said in his headset. Target 2 is on fire, Captain, another voice added. One by one, the Valzartan command stations exploded, leaving the invaders uncoordinated. In the chaos, their mechs spun in place, randomly firing at each other. This is just a drunken robot fight, Marcus laughed. It sure looks like it, Grayson agreed. No, it can't be, roared Thorne, seeing his troops panicking. Commander, one of the officers' voices trembled. They're attacking us with point-blank fire. We're firing on our own. Retreat, now. Thorne stood up to his full height, his face flaming with anger. These miserable primitives are mocking us. Order a full bombardment of Phobos. They're preparing to fire from orbit, said the Invicta's comms officer. Plan mirror, Grayson ordered immediately. Devices on the surface of Phobos activated, emitting powerful signals that mimic the signatures of warships. The Valzartan fleet, not seeing any real targets, opened fire on their own ships. Now that's what I call self-destruction, saving us some shells, joked Carter. Yeah, I wish they pay for it themselves, echoed Marcus. As the remnants of the Valzartan fleet left Martian orbit, battered and humiliated, Grayson raised a glass of coffee aboard Invicta. Anyone want some cream to go with that victory? Only if it's Imperial, Carter winked. Trust me, guys, Grayson took a sip. They'll be back. And then we will show them that human patience has limits, and that we're just getting started. The Valzartan Empire fleet emerged from warp at the edge of the solar system, looking like a vast swarm of steel that darkened the stars. There were thousands of them, from maneuverable frigates to giant dreadnoughts capable of wiping out a continent in a single salvo. Supreme Commander Vincent Thorne stood on the bridge of the flagship, the pride of the Empire, watching the Earth close in. The end is near, he growled, clasping his hands behind his back. We're going to blow their cities to dust and leave them in ashes. Commander, we've detected movement in Earth orbit, the intelligence officer reported. Oh, they've finally decided to defend themselves. No, sir, they're evacuating the satellites. Thorne frowned. What do you mean they're evacuating? They're metal boxes in orbit. They're going somewhere, the officer replied, confused. Thorne gritted his teeth. The humans were doing something strange again. Commence attack. Laser batteries on the cities, landing pods on the areas of strategic importance. Let this planet feel what real war is like. The Empire's fleet rushed to Earth. There was a tense silence in the command center of the Earth's joint forces. Admiral Rebecca Grayson, arms crossed over her chest, watched the huge red dots on the screen. Well, gentlemen, she said, the guests are here. It's time to show them that the door doesn't open from this side. They've begun landing, the comms officer reported. Good, Grayson smiled slyly. Then let's start receiving them. An alarm sounded in the air. Operation Tick, activate. When the Valzartan landing capsules entered the atmosphere, they immediately encountered their first problem gravity anomalies. The Earthlings used their satellites not just to evacuate, but to create gravity traps. All the Imperial capsules began to deviate from their trajectories and fall far from the planned landing points. What is happening? General Karzan screamed, seeing his troops instead of the centers of human cities find themselves in the middle of deserts, oceans, and mountain gorges. And then they faced a second problem. People were not going to fight a fair war. In the deserts, the paratroopers came across cleverly disguised minefields that were activated not just by pressure, but by biological sensors. The explosions destroyed only alien soldiers. In the mountains, enemy convoys were targeted by guerrilla groups that attacked from hiding places using hit-and-run tactics. In megacities, kamikaze drones attacked the invaders' logistics depots, leaving them without ammunition and provisions. Even in the jungle, they encountered invisible traps, from deadly snakes to artificial swamps that dragged mechs into the abyss. People were not just defending themselves. They were playing. Chaos reigned on the bridge of the pride of the Empire. Supreme Commander Thorne watched the confused reports from the front. Our troops are scattered. Landing craft were shot down in the atmosphere. We lost 40% of our units in the first 3 hours. Thorne clutched his head. How are they doing this? We have the technological advantage. We have the numerical advantage. But we don't have the experience to fight here, one of the junior officers muttered. Commander, this is their planet. They know it better than we do. They've used everything, the landscape, the climate, even the fauna against us. That's impossible, roared Thorne. Perhaps, said a new voice on the open frequency. Thorne froze. It was Grayson. Supreme Commander Thorne. Her voice was as cold as ice water. I realize you're having a rough day, so let me make you a little offer. How dare you? Oh, I'm sorry. Grayson didn't even try to hide her irony. You were told we were primitive. I'm sorry we don't play by your rules. Thorne clenched his fists. Your offer? You have exactly 6 hours to leave Earth before we begin to truly destroy your fleet. Empty threats? Grayson paused. Okay, here's a little example. At the same second, one of the Valzartan dreadnoughts, the Unbreakable, a 15-kilometer-long ship that could withstand supernovae, suddenly exploded, shattering into pieces. What was that? A hyper-singular blast, Grayson explained, as if she were talking about a weather forecast. We're not really that primitive. We're just good at keeping secrets. Silence. All the officers aboard the Pride of the Empire looked at Thorn. He stood motionless, clenching his teeth so hard he almost broke them. We retreat, he decided. The Empire fleet, which was supposed to wipe humanity from the face of the galaxy, was turning back, leaving behind defeated troops and burned hopes. Shouts of joy rang out at the headquarters of the United Earth Forces. Grayson calmly lowered the earpiece and sipped her coffee. All right, guys, she turned to the crew. Time to get ready for the final chord. They'll be back, but now we know they're afraid. Her eyes glittered with cold fire. This was only the beginning. Supreme Commander Vincent Thorn stood in the center of the command room, his cybernetic implants pulsing with anger. The Valzartan fleet had retreated from Earth orbit, but not in defeat. No, he didn't think so. This is a temporary retreat, he hissed, gripping the metal rail. They forced us to play by their rules, but it will not be anymore. His officers were silent. No one dared to argue, even though they all knew the truth. The humans were winning. Commander, one of the scientists said, his voice filled with apprehension. It's time to activate the Sun Eater. The room fell silent. Thorn turned his gaze to the projection of the colossal station drifting in deep space. The enormous structure, built according to blueprints found in the ruined civilization of the ancient Ranur, was capable of sucking the energy of the stars and turning it into weapons. Humans cannot defeat the power of physics itself, Thorn said. We will consume their sun and leave their planet a cold, dead stone. It seemed that the Empire was about to destroy the Earth, but people already knew about this plan. Emergency briefing, Earth Force HQ. All right, folks. Admiral Rebecca Grayson slammed her coffee cup down on the table. We have a little problem. The hologram in front of her showed a disturbing projection of a station heating the sun's corona. Damn it, they really want to steal our sun? Asked Captain Alex Carter, leaning back in his chair. Not steal, corrected Lieutenant Marcus Riley. At best, the Earth will be uninhabitable. At worst, we'll burn like a naive tourist without sunscreen, Carter grumbled. Grayson nodded. So we have exactly 7 hours before they launch a full takeover. Any suggestions? The room fell silent. Then engineer William Chen spoke up. We can blow up the station from the inside. Interesting. Tell me more, Grayson said, sitting back in her chair. Chen leaned forward. Their ancient blueprints indicate that the station uses gravity stabilizers to maintain its balance. If we cause enough spatial waves, it will simply explode. And how would we do that? Chen smiled. A few high-powered nuclear devices placed at gravitational resonance points will cause waves that destabilize the structure. So we're going to fire solar warheads at a station that steals the sun? Carter clarified. Yes, Chen nodded slightly. Brilliant, Marcus whispered, rubbing his chin. Grayson got to her feet. All right then, we leave in 20 minutes. We're taking the Black Phoenix and moving in close. Attack from the inside. No noise, no panic. Just destroy the damn thing. Oh, I love your confidence, Carter hummed. It's not confidence, she replied, heading for the hangar. It's fatigue, and I just want this war to be over. The Sun Eater station is dark, only glimpses of red emergency lights. No drones, Chen whispered into his comm. They're not aware of us yet. Good, Grayson replied. Carter, keep the exit open. They worked quickly. 7 nukes had been placed at critical points. The last device is in place, Marcus reported. Something's wrong with their scanner. Grayson grabbed the communicator. Everyone out, right now! The station shuddered, its internal gravity beginning to change. They're closing the exits, Carter shouted, grabbing a hand cutter. Grayson quickly typed in the detonation code. Activation in 60 seconds. Let's get out! Move! Running through the chaos, they jumped into the airlock and fired in the direction of the Black Phoenix. 30 seconds! Their ship was already out of warp when the light from the explosion flashed like a small supernova. Supreme Commander Thorn stared at the screens in disbelief. The station was disappearing. Rifts in space tore at its metal structures, and streams of solar energy poured back into the star. The Earthlings had done it. They had destroyed the weapon Thorn himself had thought invulnerable. Grayson sat comfortably in the bridge chair, leaning back. Thorn, if you're still there, I'd like to tell you that we've even survived the dinosaurs. Did you think we wouldn't outlive you? Silence. Then the connection was cut off. Grayson took a sip of coffee. Well, guys, I guess we can move on to the final part now. The Valzartan Galactic Empire has fallen. Their fleet was defeated, the Sun Eater station was destroyed, and Supreme Commander Thorn himself went missing after fleeing to an unknown sector. All civilizations that had once feared the humans now looked upon them with horror and respect. At a diplomatic summit where the fate of the galaxy was being decided, Admiral Rebecca Grayson calmly took the podium, looked around the crowded room and said, "We do not seek to conquer, but if someone else decides to come to us with war, well, you've already seen how it ends." In response, there was absolute silence. High lords, emperors, and chancellors of different races nervously shifted in their seats, exchanging glances. After a few seconds, the Federation's chief diplomat stood up and nodded briefly. "The galaxy recognizes humanity as an equal." No one objected. Some even bowed their heads in favor, realizing that the old order was over. People were no longer primitive barbarians. They had become a force to be reckoned with. Later, sitting in his chair on the Invictus Bridge, Grayson enjoyed a hot cup of coffee as he watched the night sky. "This is it," she muttered. "We're among the stars. Now let someone just try to tell us we're out of place." Carter grinned as he walked by and threw in, "Do you think someone will try to attack us again soon?" Grayson shrugged as she finished her coffee. "I hope not, but if they do, I'm already starting to plan how they'll regret it." In Earth's orbit, the ships of the United Fleet patrolled space, scanning for any possible threat. But this time, they weren't waiting for an attack. They knew it wasn't coming. The galaxy had changed. There were no more arrogant empires that looked down on humans as primitive beings. Now everyone realized that humanity had not only survived, it had won. Somewhere in a distant sector of space, where the Valzartans had once made their conquest plans, there was now only a radio signal traveling into the depths of the universe. It carried only one message, broadcast in all known languages. "We are not looking for enemies, but if you decide to become one, you better get ready. People are no longer victims. Humans are the storm that is changing the galaxy."